Hello. Um, I wanted to say first, I thought it was a really interesting video. I thought the thought experiment you performed was a really good and valid thought experiment, and a thought experiment that we all need to ask ourselves at times about our own opinions and our tone and our discourse that we're presenting right with each other. Because I've been on YouTube, I don't know how long exactly, but I've been watching people's videos and stuff mainly, not always posting videos myself. But, I mean, the discourse is and the tone is pretty negative and pretty horrible a lot of times. Um, Not to say I'm not guilty. Recently, I posted some comments on somebody else's videos, and wasn't my finest hour. I was pretty negative and pretty over the top and hostile. So I'm guilty of it too. But I think YouTube tends to not be, I don't know, the discourse level tends to be very negative, and maybe it's because people are anonymous. People often don't, um, I don't know, the shadow side of human nature comes out when I think when people are anonymous. Oh, and it's kind of the ring of Geises kind of thing. Anyways, it was a really good video. I think it was a great thought experiment you posed. Um, I want to say recently I got into a discussion with a guy on YouTube about um, logical fallacies. I don't know. People often kind of don't understand how logical fallacies work. I read this book here. Let's see. See that Crimes Against Logic by Jamie White. It's a really good and interesting book. It's the vocabulary is not too big. It's pretty easy to read. It's accessible to mainstream audiences. You don't have to be a logician, anything like that. So I recommend it for everybody. Um, um, because things like ad hominem attacks and appeal to ridicule are really common on YouTube. I mean, I'm guilty of them at times too. I've gotten frustrated and done ad hominem attacks. Usually it's after somebody insults me. I try to have civil discourse with people in general. Um, People often insult me. But, anyways, I guess it's not an excuse, but it's just what I've done. So, um, let's see. Um, I think one of the problems also with whether you're atheist or theist or Democrat or Republican or Marxist or Libertarian or whatever your viewpoint is. I think one of the things is there's a lot of confirmation bias on YouTube and just in American society in general. Like if we look at politics or YouTube, I think people tend to go to the sources they already agree with. So if you're really conservative, you'll just watch Fox News. If you're really liberal, though, you might just watch MSNBC. Or if you're an atheist, you'll just watch atheist videos. Or if you're a theist, you'll just watch theist videos. So there's a lot of confirmation bias. Oh, I actually read another book a while back called Going to Extremes. He was critical of the internet, which I guess is ironic because I'm posting a video on the internet. But oh, which is another logical point. Hypocrisy doesn't disprove the point you're trying to make. So I could be I could talk a lot about compassion, but I could have no compassion as a person for other people. But it still doesn't disprove that you should be compassionate towards others. Your own hypocrisy doesn't disprove the statement of logic that you're making. Statements of logic are independent of the person making the statements of logic. But anyways, um, confirmation bias, and then also we tend to only look at the stuff that we already agree with. And in this book, Going to Extremes, the author said that it tends to create more and more extremes, and so like we tend to get more and more polarized. And the internet has done this because now we're not forced to see stuff that we disagree with. We just click on people's videos that are already atheists or theists if we're a theist, and so this tends to make a more and more extreme body politic or something like that. So I think, and then I think it creates sort of a discourse when we encounter people that disagree with us. That it creates a discourse that's very hostile. I think the thing is like with like ad hominem attacks and like appeal to ridicule too. I think one of the points I wanted to make also, lastly, is a lot of ad hominem and appeal to ridicule. That all tends to just be ego stuff. That's just ego. If you're just calling somebody names, I mean, I'm guilty of it too. I've let my ego get in the way. But if you're just calling somebody names, or whatever the name is, that's just ego. You're not using valid logical points. You're just letting ego get in the way. Um, so that's just ego. You're just playing an ego game. And I think one of the things is it takes more intellectual energy to come up with a logical, valid point than it does to just play an ego game. And I think, sometimes I think people tend to be intellectually lazy, and it's also just more of a visceral reaction or something like that. But anyways, I think I thought of this thought experiment that people could do to try to lessen their own ego when it comes to having their own ideological perspective. Um, I think a question people can ask themselves is, what is the weakest aspect of my argument? Um, so what is the so if I'm an atheist, what is the weakest aspect of my atheism, or my version of atheism? Or if I'm a theist, what is the weakest aspect of my version of theism? Or if I'm a Marxist, what is the weakest aspect of my version of Marxism? Or if I'm a libertarian, what is the weakest aspect of libertarianism? My version of libertarianism. Um, and then what is the strongest aspect of the person I disagree with in their argument? So be charitable towards their argument, like principle of charity, like Davidson. Do that. So, anyways, I think that's a way to lessen ego involved in our arguments. I mean, I don't know if people care about trying to lessen ego. I mean, I care about trying to lessen ego when it comes to arguments. I mean, I'm not saying I'm perfect. I've definitely let my ego get in the way, especially with the things like racism on YouTube. I mean, racism is like rampant on YouTube. It's like really sad to see. I mean, it's the year 2011, and there's so much racism on YouTube still, and it's just really disgusting. But anyways, I think the quote I wanted to leave you with. Let's see here. It's by Sartre. From being a nothingness. It's at the end of being a nothingness. And it, let's see. Sorry, one sec, please. Okay. Sartre says, "There are no innocent victims. We add the words, we have the war we deserve, thus totally free, undistinguishable from the period for which I have chosen to be the meaning, as profoundly responsible for the war as if I had myself declared it, unable to live without interrogating it in my situation, engaging myself in it wholly, and stamping it with my seal. I must be without remorse or regrets, as I am without excuse. From from the instant of my upsurge into being, I carry the weight of the world by myself alone, without anything or any person being able to lighten it." So, I mean, that's an amazing quote by Sartre if you think about it, because Sartre's saying we create the world we live in. So if we want to live in a hostile, violent world, we create that by the disposition we take as human beings. Or if we want to live in a peaceful world, we create that by the dispositions we uptake as a human being, and that counts for every one of us on YouTube, and how we create our disposition towards others and the world we live in. So, in the thought experiment, when we make our videos and our comments, our disposition counts. And because I mean, if you like existentialism, I mean, I'm not a determinist, so I think we choose the world we live in. The world isn't determined to be any way other than the way we choose it to be. So, I don't know. I guess that's it. I think it's a really awesome quote by Sartre, and people need to take it to heart. Um, anyways, that's all I got, and thank you.